The basic question is, what's the Chiddush of Matan Torah? He added some nuance to the Chiddush. That Gosha, the emphasis was on the Midat Torah. And what was the nuance to the question? In the first paragraph. Actually, several nuances. Not only the Alvis learned Torah, which is not such a big kasha, they did, no one else did. But then he brings that in Mora, everybody was given Torah. And what's the Chiddush there? Not Stam Torah. The word is, yeah, even Chukim, what's the Hadgosha? Not so much that it's a Chayk. Right, it wasn't Negeya. It wasn't like they were given Torah, which they had to observe then. Like Shabbos, they started to observe then. This wasn't Negeya till when? Till after the...
After they said Eretz Yisrael.
Paradum would be Negeya even earlier. As soon as you have the Mishkan, then you have the Din of Tum and Tahara. And yet they had that before. So the basic answer to that was based on the famous Medrash, on the pasuk L'Reach Shmonacha Toivim Shem and Turak Shemecha Al Kin Alomis Ahivucha. So just in a word, Rabbi Yanai, the son of Rabbi Shimon, said that their mitzvahs were like what? Reach, contrast our mitzvahs. But we, quoting the pasuk, Shem and Turak Shmecha, your name flows out like the actual oil. Yeah, there's his reichus, I was like the Shem. What Chassidus explains, what does that mean? That means that their mitzvahs were, the mitzvahs were only fulfilled on the Ruchnis Dike plane. There was no change in the status of Ilam Hazeh. The Gashmis Lamata, that's in Avreichos, the mitzvahs of Ruchnis. But we have the etzem of Torah, the Shem and the body, as it were, the very source, and therefore our mitzvahs affect a shinoi, change in the world. The end of that ois, he said, however, there was a preparation, even for us. What was the preparation for Eden? For those that would receive the Torah we're talking about. Their preparation was, last 2-3 lines in ois base, 2 things he says. See it there. Being in Mitzrayim, the Kura Basel, the smelting furnace. And the second thing is Nasa v'Nishma. So after that Akdama, so now we're ready for the body of Torah, quite literally, like the body, like the oil, the actual substance itself, with which we can therefore begin to change the world. What was the shaila on that? That's the classical answer with nuance added, significant nuance added in this maamar that is not mentioned elsewhere in the shaila and in the answer. But now comes another question. In 2 extremes. If you're going to say that the mitzvahs are reichus, so who needs it? Why was there need for their avodah altogether? Just go straight to the point and give us the Torah. On the other hand, the other extreme to the question. Now let's explore what reichus means. And what are we left with? Adarab. That's what's the Inyan of Reach. It draws on and summons forth
That's a
That's
nefesh that's removed from the guf.
right. And the person faints. So what doesn't help? He says three things that normally work to keep the neshama tethered, and not just tethered, but mislabish, which means fused. With the guf, normally we have what? Two things really. Food and drink. In this case, it won't work. Not only not food and drink, not even, there's another thing, a third thing.
Medicine.
Not even medication. So what's going to work? Only the Inyan of reach. So what does the reach do? It draws on the etzem neshama, which is still present, but it's not manifesting. Person didn't die. But there's no koiches agiluyim, not koiches pnimim, and not even koiches makifim, meaning, what does it mean, not even koiches makifim, are not manifest when a person faints? For sure, he's intellectually not manifested, not his seichel, not his midas, but not only that, what's missing? Even something far deeper is not manifesting. The desire to live, that's koich makifim, and that's not manifesting either. This essential, instinctual, I want to live. Person's in the virtual comatose. What's left? Is he dead? He's not dead. So what's left? What's still present is obviously etzem neshama. But the problem is it's not expressing itself. So what does the reach do? What does the aroma do? It summons it forth. In the words of the Maimer, when you apply this lamaila, that reach shmanecha, the avoid of the ovis, look, someone find it for me, 4 lines in the bottom of the first paragraph of Eis Beis. So what is it, the shemshicha ovis? The koi refers to al, black and white. What were they mamshich through their avodah? Chinas ha'atzmul shalamaylim ha'oira mislabish ba'olim mishaydin memalak alalmin haydin seviv kalalmin. That's the keiches makifim. The parallel is a rotzim within the nefesh that they drew on. So Vimken, he concludes. So what's missing? They're mamshich l'shem and turak shmecha through the Inyan of reach. They're mamshich l'shem. No, not enough. There has to be the Inyan of Matan Torah dafka. So what did it add that they're missing? Are we clear in the question? Yeah? We started answering it. We'll start again. Ois Gimel. We mentioned this once. You see, also just in everyday life, there's nothing that can return a person to a previous experience than the aroma of the time, not a picture and not a description, not even a film of it. Even a film of it, it touches deeply. Keicharia touches deeply, but Keichareach will take you back to that place in a much more. What I'm looking for is visceral sense. That's because Reach draws on etzem neshama. Where do we see this, by the way? Just in Bereshis, the opening psukim. That's how does it all begin? The Mishnah blows Reach, neshama, into the guf. Vayipach, what's Vayipach? It's also Reach. So Vayuven al Yesod Meimer Asalto. Is Gimel again. Let's start again. So we didn't. We just started. Vayuven al Yesod Meimer Azal Ma'isa of Simen Lebanim also some areas in life, nothing that disgusts a person more, not a terrible sight, but a terrible smell. There's a much deeper effect on the person than a sight even. So there's two meanings to that. The works of the forefathers is similar banim. The Medrash goes on to say all the things that happened to the others were played out in with the children. So they're a sign. But in this idea of a siman, there's two opposite things being conveyed. On the one hand, if we say they're a sign, well, that sign is just points to, but it's not the thing itself. And in brackets, their avodah, their ma'asavis is only a siman to the avodah of the children, but not the avodah at all itself. But that's not only what it means. It also means we're not just saying that it's a portent of things to come, and it's a sign, but it actually creates it. What they did, their avodah allows for, without which they could not be the avodah of the children. Where do we find this in halacha bedugmas? Some kind of halacha bedugmas. They told Avraham, they told him to get up and walk the land. Says the Gemara, why in order to facilitate an easier conquest or acquisition of the land. Not allowed for Yidden to conquer it, because he'd already manifested in some way his balabatish, his ownership. So that wasn't just a sign for things to come, but it created things to come, right? Now that is so Yitzchak v'Yaakov. The Gemara says the same thing is true of them. No, it's not the Gemara. The Rebbe is adding here. Likewise, the avodah of Yitzchak and Yaakov, there too, their avodas, what they did, is in a sinas koyach for the avodah of Yidden, which follows. Now, especially befrat apiyam b'vur b'tanya. Now, this is certainly true, even more especially appreciated. What? That our avodah is as a consequence built on, and more than that, he's going to say now, it's bequeathed to us. What we have is partial that they give us, namely sha'ava moseteres, the natural love that every Yid has, that will not allow him at the end of the day to deny Hashem, to sunder himself. Where do we get this from? It's from them. It's an inheritance. This Ava, now it's not just Ava, he goes and explains in Tanya. Ava is the source, this natural love that a Yid is drawn naturally and cannot control it and has no choice over it. To the Eibishter, that's the source of all positive mitzvahs. He's stressing here that it's not just some love deep in the heart, but it's the fuel of mitzvahs aseh. So what does that amount to? That the mitzvahs aseh that we do, that we're capable of doing, where does it come from? It comes from the Ava that we inherited from the office. So our mitzvahs come from them too. We're incapable of doing mitzvahs if not for what they bequeathed us. And not just mitzvahs aseh, this is all from Tanya. But then Nechlel is going to be the Sayir that also incorporates the positive command, which is to be in awe of God, which is the source of mitzvahs leisaseh. Akilel is called Hashasam mitzvahs leisaseh. So in this Ava, it's the fuel for everything which we inherit. So it comes out that this natural love, hidden, the whole point of Tanya, so we should embrace it and allow it expression. And we all have the choice to do that. That's the point of Sefer Shabbat. So this Av is Yerusha, which we inherit. It affects. It affects within affects. It affects. Within every year, every Jew, in the fulfillment of his Torah mitzvahs, post Matan Torah, till the end of all generations. So here the deeper meaning of the word siman, not just a sign, but in the sinas koyach, without which it doesn't happen. So we're getting closer to answering your question, which was the first question of the second paragraph of Veis Beis. Why do we need the avodah if it's only reichus? So we already answered that by the second question. The second question already kind of answered the first by explaining that the reich draws on the etzem. Oh, it's not a substanceless avodah, and therefore who requires it, who needs it. But he already answered that by saying in the second question, which has made the question stronger, then they have everything really. The avodah is mamshech the etzem, right? So now he's starting to explore and explain that, yeah, already starting to appreciate that the avodah of the others is not just a sign in the sense that this is what's going to be happening in the future, like a prophetic kind of thing. This isn't a prophecy. This is a Yerusha. This is an avodah that creates a reality that is bequeathed to every Yid. So now the question still remains, so then what was Matan Torah? What was needed? Why is this not enough? Now comes the answer. It's a very deep answer, friends. We'll try and understand it. Inyan, to understand what it is that the Avos did, and still, we just finished saying that it's the Av and Moishe that fuels Torah mitzvahs of Eden of every Jew till the end of till Mashiach comes and beyond. So what did Matan Torah achieve? That was the critical. What was missing? So so understand is by first understanding the Inyan of Giluyim. What's Giluyim? Hashem's revelation. And what does this mean? In order that godliness should be revealed within creation, right? This is the point we say endlessly, which we were talking about in the previous maamar. We didn't spell it out there. Here's maamar spelled out, interestingly enough. Namely, that Atzmos, the Eibishter, is not a mo'er, is not a source of revelation. Chas v'sholem. As we don't tire of saying, revelation means already something other, and there's no other. So therefore, the critical point has to be, in the words of the maamar, Giloy Atzmos l'shem Giloy, the notion of Giloy. This is before Eilam, this is before anything. The Eibishter's Bechira Chavshes is free choice to give rise to, as only God can, is inexplicable, completely inexplicable. But the Eibishter gives rise to this Inyan of Giloy, the notion of Giloy, that he could be revealed in a state of revelation, and implications of that are enormous. So there's something else that's going to know you. What does that mean? How can there be something else? But that's all part of this decision, this Giloy within Atzmos. Clear? Like the decision to be a Mo'er, the decision to create. There's no creation yet, but the fact that he entertains the notion to create already gives rise to and validates something other, creation. It's far from actually emerging yet. It's a holy seder h'tshel before there's an actual creation, but it's already validated in the decision that there could be such a thing, or more than that, he wants such a thing. So that's the Giloy, Atzmos, Hashem Giloy, the Inyan of Giloy. That's big news, Giloy. As we point out, that's more fundamental, more radical change than the actual Bria Yesh Ma'ayin at the end of the whole process, which is pretty radical to go from Yesh Ma'ayin. But even more radical is from Atzmos to Ur. That's where the whole thing begins. As he goes on to say, and further, Bechinas ha'or shelegalis atzmusai, Bechinas ha'or, the notion of or, shelegalis atzmusai, by which his being should be revealed. That's the first step. In other words, the Inyan of or, Bechin of or. And once that happens, now there can be revelation is a given. Now that it's there, so now the oilambus and revelation to oilambus, the rest can all follow. The Makabolim before Chassidus, when they talked about the Eibusha, their starting point was Oir. The Oir in Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite one, blessed be, that's how he's referred to. And Chassidus came along and was Megala. That's the decision of the Eibusha. That's already after. That's after this. Now everything begins. So Baruch Hu. That's not a given. Clear? Yeah. And the reason for what? That the first has to be the Giloy or Atzmos L'Shem Giloy, this revelation. Again, the reason is the first step, the idea that God should be revealed, the notion that God should be revealed. So this affects now. Words here. Because God decided that He wants to be known, then, even though again it's fundamentally a stira, etzem built in mizgala. Let me known. Known by whom? There's nothing else. There's no place. There's no Inyan. There's no Inyanim. There's no Inyanim. What does Inyan mean? Inyan means anything other than the essence. There's no Inyanim. But once you decided that there should be Inyanim, there should be Giloi. So Nifil Ba'atzmas Inyan Giloi. So now it's the Eibishter. Yeah, he's going to be known. This is inexplicable, but this is his decision. Just like he's inexplicable, his decision's inexplicable, and the consequence of his decisions are equally inexplicable. Only God can do this. He's decided that there should be the notion of what? There's two things here, friends. I want to make sure it's clear. There should be the notion of revelation, and that he should be known in this revelation. That Atzmo should be known. Not that he should give rise to revelation, and revelation should be known. That Or should be known. That Atzmo should be known. Is this clear? Nifel ba'atzmos inyan agiloi. That Atzmos can be known. And Yid says, Baruch Hashem, who's he talking about? What's he connecting to? Atzmos. The Eibishter himself, not merely connecting to a level that the Eibishter decided, because he can do anything project, namely Or. No. He is now known. Where is it going to happen? Dafka Nilam has it in the deepest way. Are we clear before we go further? Yeah? Yes, somewhat. Nifil ba'atzmos inyan agiloi. The Eibishter is affected, that's his nisave. His nisave is that he, his atzmos, in his atzmi diket, absolute truth, this be known and be revealed, whatever that means, but known, revealed. Where ultimately here. And here means me and you, meaning that the Eibishter's decision in his relationship with us, that he wants us not just to know his revelations, his sfiras, his attributes, his oir, he wants us to embrace and be one and merge with him. We should know him. We're the Gilead, we're the other. This other should be one with him. We're the result of this, the end result of this whole Gilui business. It's all us.
We're the Inyan.
We're the Inyan, yeah. It's just a funny thing. Oliver Sholem, the Baral Sabransky, I'm not even saying this, but it's just funny. But the Baral Sabransky was a chassid in Australia. His father was the main shliach sent by the Frierdiker Rebbe to Australia. They said the Baral used to teach a lot. His main thing was teaching. And he would also chazer a sikha in shul. Once the shluchim came, they started to do that. And he would say the word Inyan constantly. And most people didn't know what the word Inyan meant. That was the word he kept on using. The Inyan of this, the Inyan of that. But the Rebbe says everything is an Inyan. Everything outside of Atzmos is an epis, a subject, a something, an Inyan. And I should say correctly, all the Inyanim, it's all for this little Inyan, you and me. It's the whole kavanah. Zeo Inyan this and Zeo Inyan that. That's the language of Chassidus. Yeah. So again, v'tama dover ki al yidei sheyesh giloy atzmos so nifel ba'atzmos inyan agilo, and he adds in brackets kifi sheshayech inyan agilo ba'atzmos, that the Eibush himself should be known and revealed. He says, like whatever that means, that atzmos should be revealed. He's not going to explain that. And whatever it means, as God per God's decision, and that's what it means. That's the fact. That's the fact, friends. And we do a mitzvah, the Yitzis Baruch Hashem. The Moir is Bizgalus, as expression in Chassidus. The Moir means God's decision to be known. It's Bizgalus B'chol Mokim. That's why Shem Shamayim, the name of God is Shoga B'fikoyel. It's accessible, and we're comfortable, and Shoga means it's accustomed on the mouth of humanity. You don't have to teach anybody about God. You don't teach a child about God. You just talk about God, and that's it. And later, the seichel comes to ask what, when, how. But it's a pillar, right? You would think that the subject of God, they shouldn't bring up to any child until they're 18. You're underage. Can't talk about such subjects. It's X-rated. Yeah, because it raises so many questions, and who said, and then become not precarious to talk about God. Let's avoid the subject. It doesn't work that way. The younger you are, the pshitus. Pshitus is later comes shilas. Why? Because atzmos is bizgalus. That's the mitzvah. Why do people believe in God? Because He's there and known. Because of this decision that He be known. You believe in God because He's there, because He exists. So that's why we just instinctively talk about Him, believe in Him. We've got to be convinced. Otherwise, it's not true. That takes the argument. And it doesn't, that never satisfies anyway, because it's not true. There's always the nagging, but maybe He is. And then the foxhole, of course, there's no atheist. So the first is the decision of Giloy Atmos, and then the whole thing follows from there. And it's more revelation, less revelation. It all starts after the fundamental decision, I want to be known. You just have to appreciate that this statement, I want to be known, assumes that being known is already a given. That's not an accurate statement at all. But there are no, we cannot obviously find language to express accurately this decision, because everything that we're talking about, that we experience, it all exists and we're relating to it, including language. So it's not like I want to be known. It means this is the Inyan for known, and he wants to be known. There is no Inyan of being known. The whole thing starts with the B'chirus ha'atzmos. There's no language here. The Eibush is B'chira for the whole Inyan, all Inyan. So after all of that, then there can be Giloy Ha'ara, the reflection. And another mighty thing is, Shal Yedei Ha'ara, even in the Giloy and the Oir, the minutest revelation, Leichem Gama Atzmus, at the end of the day, he can be known and is known even in the most minute revelation. Because that was the decision. Atzmus wants to be known. So he'll be known, therefore, even in the Ha'ara, in the Oir, in after Tzimtzum, he's ever present and can be known. The Pella is, the lower down we go, the more he's known. Yes, so tomorrow is a big Inyan. He's going to explain the Mokem Acholon, the Yitzchayim, those cryptic foundational words that describe the whole creation, Medidike explanation. It's an interesting thing. This is Vishvus Machav along my Morim. This is a short Maimah, but friends, as we can see, right? Etzema Inyan. Yeah. Okay, friends. Today's